And well, as I was saying, today we are going to be having this very interesting conference, which is the continuation of the two previous lectures. Because in the past two lectures, we have been talking about the mountains of initiation, or the three works that we must do if we want to achieve the self-realization of our being. Today, we are going to be delving in the last work that we must do. We will talk about the mountain in which the aspects of love in us will completely develop and merge, and in which love will be integrated with wisdom and totally reaching the liberation of our soul and becoming immortal beings. Okay, so let's start. Remember that if you have any question on this topic, you can leave your questions there in the comment box, and we will be solving any question that you have in relation to this topic. Okay, and well, with this work of climbing these three mountains, we will become absolute men. We are going to become divine sparks that can always move freely through the universe with full consciousness. And we are going to become gods, yes, gods of the universe. That is the path that we are proposing and teaching in this course, and that we have been developing in these conferences. And well, in the work of the first mountain, the mountain of Genesis, or the mountain of birth through waters, we saw that we all start with only 3% of consciousness, of free consciousness, and 97% of essence trapped and conditioned by our ego. And we begin working with the three factors for the revolution of consciousness, and we begin to use the Trinity, fair, useful, and true, to apply it as a filter to achieve what we call the quaternary. And those are the four rights that will allow us to save our energy, to achieve right thinking, right feeling, right acting, and right speaking. To achieve this, we must be at all times in self observation and practicing psychological death from moment to moment to eliminate the defects that wants to manifest in us and that wants to waste our energy clumsily and to contaminate our sexual energy. And with this process, will occur the saving and the purification of our energy, and as a consequence, we are going to light in our spine the sacred fire of the Kundalini, and that fire will make possible the regeneration of our physical and vital bodies that we have already created, but in a lunar state. We are going to turn them into solar bodies, and later on, we are going to be creating our solar astral body, our solar mental body, and our solar causal body. And by doing this work, we are going to go from being simple rational animals, what we are right now, to become true men with a fivefold constitution, and we will become that powerful five-pointed star that represents the authentic men. At that point, we will have a human soul. If at that point, when the decision of the path, is presented before us, we choose the direct path, then the human soul, which is represented as a triangle that goes up, will join the divine soul, which is like a triangle that goes down, and that will give rise to the perfect matrimony, and that is represented in the six-pointed star. And from that union, the intimate Christ will be born in us. Actually, we finished this first mountain with approximately 84% of awakened consciousness if we choose a direct path, okay? And the triad that is made up of manas, which is the human soul, buddhi, which is the divine soul, and atman, which is the intimate, which makes up our spirit, will develop. We'll start there and we'll develop in the work of the second mountain. Okay, that is like a recap of the first mountain, of the work that we must do there. Now, the work on the second mountain that we started last week, which is the mountain of death and purification through fire, also called the mountain of apocalypse, actually begins there with the birth of the intimate Christ. That is the Christmas of the heart. That intimate Christ in us is like the fire of the fire, the flame of the flame. That it is a revolutionary force that comes to do all the work of the second mountain that entails the creation of the seven bodies of gold and the opening of the seven churches of wisdom. That work is represented in the seven-pointed star. Once the point of creating the causal body of gold has been reached, that inner Christ will begin to internally live the entire process of the way of the cross. He must be actually crucified. He must pay the hard karma for 8 years. He must eliminate the causal selves. And by doing that, he will eliminate the totality of our ego. And after going down to hell for 3 days, which are actually the infra dimensions of this planet, that is hell, to do the work of eliminating all that ego, he will resurrect as an immortal being without a trace of ego and already with 99% of consciousness. Actually, the remaining 1% of consciousness is the cosmic consciousness. Okay, right there, finishing second mountain, we will have 99% of consciousness, and that 1% that remains will be we are going to integrate that consciousness into the 99 during the work of the third mountain, which is the one that we are going to see today, because the third mountain is nothing more than the mystical death of two laws to merge into one single law so that we can join again the absolute. This work of the third mountain is a work dedicated to the sacrifice for humanity. Since the master reaches these heights, must take charge of the responsibility of the world teaching. That is the responsibility of making sure that the knowledge is maintained in the planet. And he also, in that mountain, must find a disciple who remains in charge of the knowledge in the planet, so that he can enter the absolute and so that he can stay there. For some masters, it will be like something very easy to do because they already have their advanced disciple, sorry, but others will have to start doing that work. And actually, in certain situations, that work can last up to centuries or even millions of years, depending on the point of evolution or involution in which the planet is at that moment. Okay, and well, the third mountain is done, and this is interesting, without the help of the physical partner, because the physical marriage goes only until death separates them, as we hear when people get married, right? But what death? The death of the entire ego. Here, at the end of the second mountain, the entire ego will die. So the initiator, the master, is going to pass through the psychological death. And after that death of the causal ego, he will remain converted into a serpent man. And here he must recover he must create the bodies of light. He will start creating the bodies of light in the third mountain, but he are going to do that with his own divine soul. Okay, because at that point he must join the Holy Spirit, and when he do so, he become an Elohim, which is an androgynous being. Okay, with his female and male parts totally integrated in him. And with his divine soul, he is going to do the work of creating the bodies of light. Okay, these bodies should be created so that the Father, who is pure light, can enter the person, and the person can live the baptism of light. And well, actually, these initiations of the third mountain are called the initiations of light. This one is already an initiate of light because the causal ego has died in its entirety, and the initiate has had to pass through that process of death, eliminating all of his ego in 100%, and he then becomes the beloved son of the Father, a son of light. And he who reaches this total Christification becomes a child of light and love, because at that point he is an universal and cosmic force, but conscious at all times without losing his individuality. The ones who reaches these heights are what are known as the children of light. Actually, these are the beings of light. We need to we let's say that we yes are beings of light, but only potentially, but only in an essence. We need to make this inner work. We must climb these three mountains of initiation so we can really become beings of light. We must come to create these bodies of light in our interior. And at that point, that master don't have a stain left inside or outside, not even the shadow of the ego. That is why he's completely light. And that is when he can return to the bosom of the cosmic father, full of absolute happiness and with full freedom, because that is an authentic freedom. That is actually our goal. That is why we are hardly working on ourselves to reach this point, to reach immortality, where the master can already keep all his vehicles, his seven vehicles, without being subject to loss or time, because at that point we become immortal beings and we can decide if we want to live in whatever dimension, or we can go up will to whatever dimension, because we already have immortal vehicles. That is, if that master at that point wants to come to the third dimension, he already has his body, his physical body of light, and he can come and he can use his physical body, which is an immortal body, to do an emission here in the third dimension. But those masters actually prefer to stay in higher dimensions, right? Because of the density, because of the materiality of the third dimension. And all those bodies are immortal. Actually, Jesus, that old very known master, has his physical body with all the existential bodies of the being outside of time. His body has nothing to do with time, because they will always be young, or whatever he wants to turn them, because he actually has at that point the power of ubiquity. And well, at this point in this mountain, we find an interesting symbol, which is a symbol of the sepulchre or the coffin. And it is because at this point in the third mountain, the initiate has to pass for another process of death. Because every time that we want to give birth to something inside us, we need to pass through a process of death. But this is like the last death that the master needs to pass through. And when he does so, he always finds another symbol, which is this of the great crown, which symbolizes the crown of King of Kings. The symbol of the grave is the symbol, or of the sepulchre, is the symbol of when the two forces of this third mountain die to be born as a unit. Because remember that at this point, the master is still a trinity. He is under three laws. He is under the law of the Father, of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. And what happens that as a trinity, one cannot enter the absolute. Then after the Christ do the work of merging with the Holy Spirit, which are two of the three aspects of love, that is, of Mother God, the Christ, the Holy Spirit, then he must merge with the third aspect of the Mother God, which is the Lucifer, which is or was the psychological trainer. The serpent at that point must coil to form the O of the Spirit or God the Mother, as we studied in the lecture on duality, the 49 of the phase A. We learned that at this point, the Christ defeats the dragon, which is Lucifer, in all temptations because if, as he has already eliminated the causal ego and has no psychological defects inside him, then this psychological trainer or Lucifer can no longer tempt him because he has nothing, no ego inside. And Lucifer can try to tempt him, giving him, or yeah, trying to give him, I don't know, wellness, fame, women or men or whatever. But as he doesn't has pride, as he has eliminated totally the lust, as he has eliminated the greed, etc., he cannot be tempted. So at that point, the master defeats totally the Lucifer, which is the force of the sun, and then he merged with this force. Okay, and then with the Christ, the Holy Spirit, and the Lucifer has integrated, Mother, the God, or God the Mother, remains, which is like the love within us fully integrated. That is one, that is the first part of the work that must be done in the third mountain. But at that point, the force of the Father, which is the wisdom, still remains outside. At that point, the master has become a perfect duality, but as a duality, he cannot enter the absolute either. You must return, remember, as a unit. Then, when the creation of the bodies of light is finished, then the two laws, the law, in this case, God the Mother and God the Father, are absorbed into one, and it then remains united to the great law. Then he is already connected to the absolute directly by the great law. Okay, and that is actually the symbol of the Aztecs of the eagle that is swallowing the serpent. The eagle is God the Father, and the serpent that bites his tail is God the Mother. And at that point, the eagle swallows the serpent to merge, to reach unity and then total liberation, and becomes a feather serpent. And well, the absolute actually cannot be described. The masters actually do not describe the absolute because the absolute is from where all creation and everything that exists depends. The absolute, it is out of law because it is the great law, in such a way that everything lives in the absolute and returns to the absolute. The monads, the essence that we all are, leave the absolute unconscious, and when carrying out this work, they have to return to the absolute with 100% of consciousness to be part of the great consciousness and to enjoy absolute happiness. And well, in order to have the right to remain in the absolute, the initiate must have left a disciple on the path already working in order to afford for him to disappear. As long as he doesn't leave a disciple, an initiate who has chosen the direct path and is making his consciousness revolution with the three factors, he cannot enter the absolute to stay definitely, but he has to enter and to live. And well, this is the work that we must do to achieve the total self realization of our being. All this inner work is comprised within these three mountains of initiation. Actually, there have been some masters that have gave us all this information, that have traced for us like this map, so that we know what is it that we must do if we want to reach full liberation. But actually the masters don't give us more details about this, because the disciple, that means us, must discover for ourselves all the triumphs, all the payments, and everything that the conscious hierarchies are going to give us for the sacrifices that we do while traveling on this path. Okay, actually, here you can see like a synthesis of the three mountains. On the first mountain, we are going to rise from our our currently fallen state by creating our bodies, our solar bodies, okay, our physical, vital, astral, mental, and causal solar bodies to achieve a human soul. And on the second mountain, the second triad, also known as the spirit, will develop. This triad is manas, buddhi, and atman, or the causal, the buddhic, and the atmic bodies, which are also our human soul, our divine soul, and our Christic principle. And on the third mountain, the integration of the primary triad will take place. That is, the force of the Holy Spirit, the Son, and the Father to, yes, become an absolute man. These 10 aspects that you can see here are the same Sephirot of Kabbalah, or the 10 self conscious parts that make up our inner being, and that with the inner work we are going to integrate. And well, those are the three mountains of initiation that we are closing with the explanation today. And in our next lecture that we are going to be studying next week, we are going to talk about the four kinds of Hanasmusen. There, we are going to understand what a Hanasmusen is, and we will talk about the need to stop having a double center of gravity and to define ourselves on this inner path. That is a very, very interesting lecture. Please don't miss it. And well, remember that if at any point you have any question, you can contact us through the messenger of the page, or you can join our WhatsApp group and you can contact us to solve any question that you have. Okay, here I want to greet Angelica and Joseph, who are here sharing with us. Hi, guys. And well, as we don't have any question on this topic, I want to thank you again for being here and for sharing these lectures. And well, thank you very much and see you the next time. Bye bye.